Hey there, homesteaders! It's a beautiful sunny day here in the desert, which brings us to our solar power.
And we're going to be making a homemade solar oven to try and cook a couple things with the sun directly.
So grab some sunscreen and your sunglasses too, because it's all solar magic today. Let's get cooking! We're Kaliki and Brett, a rugged and adventurous gay couple who are sick and tired of clashing with life in the city.
So we decided to head into the desert to chase our dreams and thrive.
Along with our furry friends Chuck and Momo,
we'll explore DIY projects, tiny house construction, gardening, hiking, cooking,
and share what it looks like to jump headfirst into homesteading.
So subscribe and join us on our dusty adventures to build this desert dwelling.
We started out with just a kit that we bought from Renogy, which was a really great way to get us introduced to solar systems and how they work, because it is kind of complicated. So we just started with 200-watt panels with a 40-amp charge controller.
And that'll make sure your batteries aren't ever getting overcharged and they're getting the right amount of power, because like if it is in full sun, then it could like send a surge of power. If you just had it directly hooked up to a battery, you can really damage a battery that way. So you need something that's regulating the amount of electricity that's going into the battery.
And another great thing about the charge controller, it kind of lets you know what's happening with your batteries, if the temperature's too hot, if they're running too low. Then we had to buy batteries. There are lots of different batteries you can buy. So at this point we have 200 amp.
I think it's like 110 amp hours.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's pretty confusing. We decided to go with the gel batteries because they're sort of a middle of a road as far as long-lasting quality and price. So then from the batteries it just goes to an inverter, which changes the DC power that comes from the panels into AC. So AC power is the kind that most people just have in their house, and you can plug any appliance that you have into it. We decided we were going to get an inverter that can handle up to 2,000 watts. Our coffee maker takes about 500 watts. So we need to be able to handle 500 watts. But on top of that, we also have internet that's happening all the time, sometimes a TV that's working.
Yeah, the mini fridge, which that takes about 100 watts when it's running, or a little under 100 watts.
And it might seem pretty straightforward, but a lot of things have a startup wattage. So like when we need to run a saw or something, it may be a 500 watt saw, but when it kicks on, it's going to use about 1,500 watts all in a big burst.
In the future, like, I think a bigger inverter would be better, because what we have can run some power tools, but it's really like pushing it for most bigger power tools. So
there is a fuse that we have in there.
Yeah, that goes like from the charge controller to the batteries. There's a fuse in that line. So even though the charge controller is already kind of protecting the batteries from that, just in case there's some malfunction in the charge controller, there's a fuse in that line as an extra protection.
So you could have more fuses in your system just to protect each component of it, but the batteries, like we said, are the most expensive thing, so we wanted to make sure we protected those. If one of the panels got broken, I'd be way less disappointed than if a battery blew up. We would definitely really like to have what are those batteries called?
The lithium ion, or like the gold standard. kind of batteries, but they're 4 times more expensive.
The ones that we definitely wanted to avoid were just the AGM batteries. It's a glass mat battery. They're good batteries, they just don't last as long, and they're a little more sensitive to temperature fluctuations and stuff, and with the weather that we have here, that's something we wanted to avoid.
Yeah, and then there's the flooded lead acid batteries, which they require more maintenance, and they're the cheapest one, but it seems like a lot more work and kind of dangerous. You have to have really good ventilation because they off gas.
Yeah.
It's just more than we wanted to deal with. We could double our setup now.
Technical difficulties.
We could double the setup we have now and still be using the same charge controller and the same inverter that we have, so we wouldn't have to buy a new thing. Solar panels are basically, they're the cheapest part. Each one of them is about,
They're around $100, I think. Yeah, at this point, when we first got them, they were like $115, but I think these ones are $100 now.
yeah, and then batteries are,
$250
yeah,
each.
yeah.
You're not supposed to have different ages of equipment in your solar system, so we kind of just have to wait for it to die out at this point if we want to make it any bigger.
Yeah. And they're 12-volt batteries, but we have them wired up in series and parallel, so we have basically 200 amp hour 24-volt batteries.
You would do that because it requires less amps, so our charge controller can handle up to 40 amps, so wiring that way just allows us to have a lot more batteries, which we don't have yet. So something that's really important that I think a lot of solar panel owners overlook is making sure that they are clean. That is even more important here in the desert because it's so dusty here. I don't know if you can see just how much dust that removed. So all we do is we get the hose and we just shoot it off to keep it functioning properly. Get it. It's really easy. All you have to do is just spray them off. It keeps them clean. It's easy to do in the summer, especially because we're out here watering our garden already. We forget about it a little more often in the winter.
Another benefit in the summertime is they can get really hot sometimes, and they're less efficient when they're really hot. So spraying them cools them down a little bit, at least for a while.
Yeah. So here's the solar panel that we have that provides us with all of our lighting inside. It's a really basic system, but also it was really affordable and all in one. So this is a 12-watt solar panel, and it can power the 3 different lights that are connected to the control panel inside, which I will show you now. This controls the 3 different lights that we have connected to it, and actually we only have 2 lights connected right now, one that's right above our heads and one that goes into the bathroom. This also can be a light. It's got 3 settings just like the other ones. It has a bunch of different settings right now. It's telling us the battery is full. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see the control panel. Looks like no, you're not going to be able to see that. It also has a radio. You can connect MP3 players to it. Again, you can't see, but it has a little battery gauge. Right now we're full. It tells you the time and the day of the week and the date. These are all the different controls for volume, radio, stuff like that. Let's see.
You know, I have 4 tenants that I live by.
Oh dear. It's seeking. We live in a fairly rural area though, so we're not going to get any great signal. I have never listened to the radio on this thing before, but it's kind of a cool option. We've been using it to light our house for almost 2 years now. It's been really great. So this is our attempt at creating a solar oven. We tried to do it on as low of a budget as possible because we are pretty low budget. This reflective part here, this is just one of those window screens that you can put into your car when you park somewhere and you want to keep it cool inside. So we just took a funky one of these. I think it was a couple dollars. And then we did buy one of these pots because we didn't have any that were black. We read that you could spray paint it, but I don't really want to heat anything up that I'm cooking with spray paint on it. We have a cast iron grill pan underneath that because that will absorb heat as well. We set that up on a couple cinder blocks just so it's not laying in the dirt, and then we just got a couple rocks to kind of hold this up here. And you can't see it, but behind it there's a string that stays to hold up the back.
So yeah, it's getting pretty hot already. Like, this is pretty hot to the touch, and then inside it's hotter. And when we are trying to bake something, we'll put a plastic oven bag around this whole Dutch oven, and that will hold in a bunch of heat and steam from everything and really help the cooking process. So before I try to actually bake something in it, I'm gonna try to cook an egg in it. I've got a little glass ramekin in there. I'm gonna just melt a little butter and crack an egg in there and see how long it takes it to cook. It seems like it's getting really hot in there, definitely hot enough to cook an egg, but I think it's probably gonna take a while, especially without having a bag around this, but I think it'll cook it anyway, so we'll try that and see how it goes.
And luckily our hens have started laying eggs fairly consistently.
Alright, well, I'm gonna go grab that and some butter and see if we can make this happen. Alright, got my egg and my butter. I'm just gonna stick the butter in here. Actually, I'm gonna let this melt. I think it'll melt in there pretty fast.
Yeah, you can see it melting inside there already. Get out! Be good. Sit down. Sit down. Good boy. Just go. Oh.
As you can see, the butter's melting already. It's just been in there for maybe 15 seconds.
Get out of here, dog. You're making your rounds. Get your stink mouth gone. Do you think it'll cook an egg in there?
Yeah.
I'm so nervous. Momo, you think it'll cook an egg in there? Get out of here. Get out of the kitchen. We're cooking. Get out of here. Get on.
So my butter's all melted now. Just gonna crack this egg in. Oh! Look at that! A double
Ooh,
yolk!
A double yolk. Chicken's gone wild.
How exciting!
No wonder that one was so big.
Yeah. Alright, well, I'm gonna put the lid back on this so it can start cooking. How cool.
That is cool.
Here, Momo, for you.
Momo loves eggshell. Good boy. Yeah. So it's been about 5 minutes with that egg in there. We're gonna go ahead and check to see how it's doing.
Not much is really happening. I wonder if we should just get one of those bags and try to close it in.
So after 5 minutes of being in there, it doesn't look like much has happened to the eggs at all. We're gonna go ahead and get one of the oven bags that we bought to help insulate inflate it and hold the heat in a little bit better. Momo, you're filming for us? Alright, so we've got that oven bag, and we're going to go ahead and try to slip it on there. So we're going to leave this on here for about 10 minutes this time, and we will check in and see how it's going. We decided to let it bake in that solar oven for about 45 minutes instead of just 10 minutes. We read up a little bit, and seemed like it was going to take about that amount of time to cook an egg, so let's go check on it. It's nice and hot.
It's definitely hot. That is still not cooked for sure. But it cooked a little bit.
Yeah. That is weird. Ah, it's hot.
Yeah.
I don't know, you think if we leave like some cornbread in there for a few hours it might do something?
I hope so.
I don't know what we do.
So I rotated this a little bit more because the shadow should be like going straight behind it. That means that it's lined up with the sun more directly. It's not getting as hot as it should, I think. Partially that's due to the angle of these things, and it's just flopping around in the wind. Just want as much light to be reflected onto that pan as possible. So I just cheated a little bit and added some boiling water into that Dutch oven that I'm cooking the egg in. And when I opened it up though, the egg had cooked quite a bit more than it had. It's been about 5 minutes since we showed you that. So it is cooking in there, it's just going pretty slow. But I think it'll work, and especially since I added the boiling water to it, it's definitely like gonna cook a bit faster now. I'll check it again in like 10 or 15 minutes, and it probably should be done by then. Oh yeah, that is definitely cooked. I think it's maybe a little overdone now, but it should be alright. Let's go taste it. I just put a little salt and pepper on the egg. Now I will give it a try. It's not as overcooked as I thought, actually. The yolk is still a little bit translucent. Yeah, this is great. Perfect. I usually like a runny yolk, but hey, I'm not complaining. This is so good. I am excited that we can actually cook like this. So now I will start making that cornbread and get that cooked. Hi Rachel, come on in. Alright, the first thing I'm gonna do is make my vegan buttermilk by taking a cup of soy milk and adding a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Then I'll just give that a little stir and set it to the side for 5 minutes. Next I've got a tablespoon of flax meal that I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of hot water to. Otherwise referred to as a flax egg. This will do the same thing that an egg would do in a recipe. Just act as a binder. Set that to the side. And here I've got a stick of butter, and I'm just gonna let it sit out in the sun for a minute to melt. I am gonna mix this melted butter with a half cup of brown sugar. Now it's time to measure out the dry ingredients. We got 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of yellow cornmeal, 1 cup plus 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour,
1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then a half teaspoon of salt. And just mix that all together. So now to my dry ingredients, I'm going to add my butter and sugar mixture, my milk and vinegar mixture, and my flax and hot water mixture. And I'm going to whisk that all together. And then finally to that, I'm going to add 1 can of corn. And now I've got a greased pie pan. I'm just going to add this to. Now let's go put it in the solar oven. Alright, I've got this angled a little bit better toward the sun now, and I'm going to let that bake for probably at least an hour and a half. It took the egg a little over an hour to bake, so I'm assuming it'll take this longer than that. I still need to actually rotate that a little bit. The shadow should be directly behind it. Alright, I think that's a little bit better of an angle. It's facing the sun pretty well. I'm gonna probably adjust it a couple more times as it bakes, but it should work. Fingers crossed.
So this has been cooking for about 2 hours now. So let's check on it, see if it has baked. Oh my. Oh god. So I had water in the bottom of this to help kind of steam it. Yeah, that did not work. Tastes good though. Well, I'm not gonna give up on this entirely. I'm gonna try to finish cooking this with the regular oven. The sun is, I think, too far gone at this point to do anything. Let's see if we can salvage some of this.
Alright, I think this worked a little better. If I can get it without burning myself again. Smells really good. Yeah, that looks great. So, the solar oven didn't quite work, but we still ended up with a nice cornbread.
We should raise it up a little bit.
Get that spiffy new hair in there.
Yeah. I'll shut in my hair. Oh yeah.
We look good?
Yeah, who is this guy?
With my shirt. I turned it inside out so you can't see this drip I did.
Perfect. I'm gonna cut a couple of pieces of this cornbread for us, and then we can eat it and talk to the camera, tell everybody how great they are. Look at that. Partially cooked by the sun and then finished with a propane Coleman camp oven.
Yeah, it worked out so well.
Well, it looks great, so let's see how it tastes.
So nice, so beauty. Yeah, it turned out great. It's like a cornbread pie. It needs honey butter frosted topping.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think this is the best thing that I've baked so
Yeah.
far. It's like cooked perfectly. It's still moist, and it's got this nice brown.
yeah.
Or maybe that's the key. Warm it up in a solar oven for about 2 hours, and then cook it for about 10 to 15 minutes.
The solar oven didn't work out as much as we would have liked it to, but I think it'll still definitely be successful. We'll have to give it another shot, and we'll do a little video about that soon to come.
Yeah.
Even though this, still needed the propane, we definitely cut down a lot of the cooking time by doing it this way. So, it's good. It's a step towards sustainability. We hope you enjoyed our solar episode today. It was a lot of fun to make. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode of Desert Dwelling.
See you next Tuesday.
Bye. Momo, what you doing over there?